of this CONERAD program. Give your address and indicate whether you heard the program on 640 or 1240, and whether these messages were received good, meaning loud and clear, fair, meaning faint but understandable, or poor, meaning indistinct or not at all. You are tuned to CONERAD, 640 or 1240 on your radio dial. This is an Operation Alert 1961 program. But this is a test exercise and not a real alert. And now we take you for a national announcement.
Ladies and gentlemen, a message from the President of the United States.
Fellow Americans, the annual civil defense exercise, of which this broadcast is a part, is a test of our program of peaceful preparedness. We do not expect war. However, common prudence demands that we take all necessary measures to protect our homes, our institutions, and our way of life, so that they can survive should an enemy thrust war upon us. Should the United States ever be subjected to direct enemy attack, CONELRAD and the National Emergency Broadcasting System will be vital to our defense. This carefully planned program would prevent an enemy from using our radio stations to assist him, and yet permits emergency broadcasting such as you now hear. The voluntary participation of the radio and television broadcasters of the nation at their own expense is a commendable example of individual responsibility which is so essential to the survival of this nation. In the whole area of civil defense, there is the same requirement. It is true that your government, too, must fulfill its responsibility in civil defense with vigorous leadership. To this end, I have directed an intensive study of the whole subject of emergency planning. It is also true, however, that individual preparedness, which is beyond the province of government, is essential to an effective civil defense. For unless individual Americans plan to protect their own families, the most ambitious and carefully organized activities of government will prove inadequate. We are a people of strong faith in ourselves and in our institutions. We believe that our freedom and our liberty are worth protecting. Therefore, I ask you to support civil emergency planning in your local communities. To those participating in this three-day exercise, I express my appreciation for your active response to the obligations of citizenship in a free country.
You have just heard the President of the United States, John F. Kennedy. Now, the Director of the Office of Civil and Defense Mobilization, Frank B. Ellis.
The President's statement that individual preparedness is essential to an effective civil defense should inspire our citizens to plan now to protect themselves under attack conditions, such as are now being simulated for training purposes. By relinquishing this airtime to the government to test the emergency broadcast network, the radio and television industry has made a contribution to national readiness worthy of the highest commendation. Other industries are making similar contributions of time and effort to civil emergency defense beyond the province of government action. Governors, mayors, and other elected leaders will speak to you this afternoon in the CONERAD Radio Alert program in every state, county, and municipality. I urge you to consider their messages with the closest attention. They will emphasize that leadership and direction of your community effort for preparedness is now available, and that government everywhere is ready to serve you in the effort to show you how to protect yourselves and families, and thereby preserve our most valuable resource, our people. There are many protected sites outside of Washington designed to continue federal operations in the most extreme emergency. Personnel are at these locations now, carrying out emergency assignments and communications, damage assessment, fallout forecasting, and many other activities needed to maintain your government in time of disaster. We are now taking steps to improve various aspects of our national program. Among these are the warning network, which will reach every home and town and person in America. Our stockpiles of emergency medical supplies, which must be dispersed widely and in sufficient quantity for all emergency requirements, are being handled. Against contaminated fallout, we are planning a complete program and are manning these operations by trained personnel using dependable instruments everywhere in America to measure the degree of radioactive fallout. Our mobilization, management, and protection of national resources must be adequate to meet both military and civilian needs as we recover from attack. Under the leadership of our great President, I ask you to support civil emergency planning for your community and in your home. Every measure taken now by you and your family, your city and state authorities, or the federal government reduces the likelihood of nuclear war. Peace cannot be taken for granted. We must keep our guard up on the home front. Our powerful military forces cannot save us if our civil population lacks the will and capacity to survive.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. You've just heard messages from the President of the United States and OCDM Director Frank Ellis, broadcast from a secret government relocation site somewhere outside Washington. This concludes the presidential message.
CONERAD. This is a part of 1961 Operation Alert Program. This is a test exercise, not a real alert.
The following messages are from your Illinois Civil Defense Agency and from your local civil defense authorities. As a civilian, in time of war or other disasters, you may require outside assistance, food, clothing, or other public aid. To tell you about advanced planning in this vital survival area, here is Mr. Peter Cahill, Executive Secretary of the Illinois Public Aid Commission.
Emergency welfare services means locally provided measures for feeding, clothing, housing, or lodging in private and group care facilities, registration and information, locating and reuniting families, care of unaccompanied children, the aged, the handicapped, and other groups needing specialized care or services, necessary financial assistance or assistance in kind, and all other feasible welfare aid and services to people in need during a civil defense emergency. Nothing will be more important in the aftermath of nuclear attack, if it comes, than provision of basic necessities of life to the surviving population and help with the human problems of adjustment. Responsibility for emergency welfare services has been delegated to the Illinois Public Aid Commission, but that agency will be unable to do the whole emergency welfare job by itself. It needs the help and cooperation of other governmental agencies carrying on the civil defense program, and the invaluable assistance of voluntary welfare and related organizations, school officials, community leaders, and countless individuals. Local organizations have the vitally important task of planning, staffing, and initiating activities at the point where emergency services will actually be given. It is here that the detailed lodging, feeding, clothing, counseling, and other welfare programs must be established. Welfare center areas will be established within counties and cities to break the emergency operating job into manageable sections and to make certain that essential survival services are available locally. Though appalling and enormous in total requirements, the task of meeting these emergency welfare needs is by no means impossible. By beginning now to prepare, the emergency welfare job can and will be brought within the capacity of almost any community. Its success will be accomplished by each of us rallying to the assistance of our neighbors in times of need within the dictates of our American traditions.
You have just heard a message from Mr. Peter Cahill, Executive Secretary of the Illinois Public Aid Commission.
You are tuned to CONERAD 640 or 1240 on your radio dial. This is an Operation Alert 1961 program. This is a test exercise, not a real alert. Under actual CONERAD broadcasting, you would also hear from your local civil defense authority. One message might be from the mayor of your community with important information about local plans.
Keep a 14-day supply
Your mayor might say that this is a serious emergency. He might warn you that enemy bombers and missiles are heading for Chicago, Peoria, Springfield, Rock Island, or other key Illinois target cities. That your civil defense organizations are functioning. He might advise you to evacuate if you're in a target city, or to take immediate shelter until further notice if in other areas. He would advise that he or his appointed civil defense authorities will speak to you whenever developments require. He would urge you to keep tuned to 640 or 1240 for this information. This is the type of message your mayor would give if Operation Alert were a real emergency. This is just an illustration of the type of information you would hear. First-hand information from your elected and appointed leaders, from people you know and respect. This is CONELRAD, the emergency broadcasting means of dispelling rumors and enemy propaganda which, unchecked, would cause panic.
This is a civil defense test exercise, and you're listening to CONELRAD. We want to know how clearly you received these messages. Please send a postcard to the broadcasting station to which you were listening, give your address, and indicate whether you heard the program on 640 or 1240, and whether the messages were received good, meaning loud and clear, fair, meaning faint but understandable, or poor, meaning indistinct or not at all. This is a civil defense test exercise to determine the efficiency of CONERAD emergency broadcasting. Please write in. This is a test exercise, not a real alert. In time of real emergency, you might also hear from your local director of civil defense, who might have this important message.
Your local civil defense director would probably say, "Attention, please. Your local civil defense organization is fully mobilized and in action." He would urge that you listen continuously to CONERAD for reports and instructions. He'd ask that you act quickly but cautiously, that you check your emergency food supply. Be sure your portable battery radio is operating, that your flashlight has good battery. If you're in a target city, he'd urge that your car be gassed up, ready for emergency evacuation if ordered. In addition, he would possibly introduce your local fire chief, who would tell you that firefighting equipment had been dispersed beyond city limits, that all disaster equipment has two-way radio in direct contact with your civil defense headquarters, ready to act as required. He'd probably suggest that you fill all tubs and basins with water in case of a stand-fast order and eventual water cutoff, that you extinguish all flames, shut off utilities, and listen to CONERAD.
This is an Illinois Civil Defense Operation Alert 1961 announcement. This is the type of message you might receive if the present exercise were a real emergency. This is a test exercise, not a real emergency.
Your CONERAD program now brings you Francis B. Porzell, Senior Scientific Advisor, Army Research Foundation, and leading authority on effects of nuclear weapons. Mr. Porzell will discuss fallout hazards and evaluate federal, state, and local civil defense measures against nuclear attack.
The present civil defense program could save 100 million American lives if each adult did his part. The point is not merely your life and mine, but is what we do for the children. Indifference, surrender, or race suicide will not help them. Neither will useless fear. Protection from fallout is relatively easy. Fallout takes hours or days to sift down through the atmosphere and decays swiftly at early times. During the first day, the radioactivity decreases 6,000 times from its rate at the first minute. Even where fallout might be deadly in the open, a simple basement shelter, merely being below ground level, would shield from any measurable harm. Food and water in dust-free containers, like cans, tanks, paper, or plastic sacks, are entirely safe afterwards. Close enough to any bomb, nothing would survive the blast and heat through. But wherever it hits, this central, hopeless area is always relatively small. Areas of lesser damage are 100 times as large. There, most of us will be, and there a shelter may count as life or death.
This concludes the CONERAD test program, a part of 1961 Operation Alert. We would like to know how clearly you received these messages. please send a postcard to the station to which you are listening, give your address, and indicate how well